Mainland authorities hand over 3 suspects in last month's Tsim Sha Tsui jewelry shop robbery. Work permits no longer needed for Hong Kong people taking up jobs on the mainland. And the main opposition candidate in Zimbabwe's presidential election plans to challenge the poll results.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Mainland authorities today handed over to Hong Kong police 3 suspects in connection with the Tsim Sha Tsui robbery last month. Kena Chu has more.
The Guangdong Provincial Public Security Department handed 3 Hong Kong suspects to the police at the Huanggang border checkpoint this afternoon. The suspects were previously held in a detention center in Shenzhen. They had their identities confirmed through fingerprint verification before they were given to Hong Kong officers. The occasion was attended by police representatives from Guangdong, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong who signed papers. On July 1st, 3 masked men robbed a jewelry shop in Tsim Sha Tsui, taking away around $20 million worth of watches and jewelry. On the 17th and 19th last month, Shenzhen authorities arrested 3 Hong Kong men aged 36 to 40. 2 mainlanders, a man and a woman, were also rounded up in the operation. Authorities seized $1.74 million in cash and 12 wristwatches in the process. Here in Hong Kong, the police also arrested 4 men and 4 women on suspicion of involvement in the robbery. So far, Hong Kong has reached extradition agreements with 20 jurisdictions, but the mainland is not on the list. Through cooperation arrangements, the police seek mainland assistance in gathering information and meeting related persons of cases. However, due to fundamental differences between the legal systems of the SAR and the mainland, Hong Kong police officers have not carried out arrests on behalf of mainland authorities or handed suspects over to the other side. Kena Chu, TVB News.
Mainland employers will no longer have to apply for work permits for their Hong Kong staff. This as the State Council announced it's abolishing the requirement. However, there are some who think the move is more symbolic than practical. Caleb Leung has more.
Good news for Hong Kong people who have worked on the mainland for more than 3 months. Their employers no longer need to apply for work permits for them. This means the employers will be spared of the tedious application procedures. Previously, employees had to submit numerous documents to the relative government departments. They also had to go over the process again when they switched jobs or cities. The new rule also applies to people from Macau and Taiwan. This man who works in Beijing welcomes the move. He said the application process was complicated and it took him 3 months to complete. Will the latest move attract more Hong Kong people to work on the mainland? A local member of the National People's Congress, Stanley Ng, says additional measures are needed to make jobs on the mainland more appealing to Hong Kong workers. For example, for those who wish to collect a pension from China's old age insurance system, they must pay their share of premiums for at least 15 years. However, contributions to the system will discontinue when the employee leaves the company. Says Hong Kong employees should be given the choice to continue paying their premiums and be protected by the system. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
A new United Nations report says North Korea has not stopped its nuclear and missile programs. The report from a panel of experts monitoring UN sanctions against North Korea maintains Pyongyang continues to violate those sanctions. Alan Buchnia reports.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who is in Singapore for a meeting that's brought together ASEAN foreign ministers and their counterparts from dialogue countries, emphasized the importance of maintaining diplomatic and economic pressure on North Korea.
It is clear our partners and allies within ASEAN know how important the denuclearization of North Korea is for their own security. I called on them to strictly enforce all sanctions including the complete shutdown of illegal ship-to-ship transfers of petroleum destined for North Korea.
Pompeo added there's evidence Russia is violating the sanctions.
We have seen reports that Russia is allowing for joint ventures with North Korean firms and granting new work permits to North Korean guest workers. If these reports prove accurate, and we have every reason to believe that they are, that would be in violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2375.
At the close of today's meeting, the host foreign minister stressed ASEAN has to work together with the United States.
So we live in uncertain times, but I think you will all also agree that this is something which no single country can handle unilaterally.
The UN report said North Korean diplomats to some ASEAN countries play a key role in sanctions evasion by controlling bank accounts in the name of front companies. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
A 12-year-old Chinese girl who went missing from an airport near Washington, D.C. has been found safe. Jinjing Ma was found yesterday in the custody of her parents in New York. She was last seen leaving her Chinese tour group at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport before she was led away by an Asian woman. Police issued an Amber Alert, fearing she was kidnapped. Even though police were told she was picked up by her parents, the FBI is investigating the strange case. Her alleged parents claim they've been living in the U.S. for 2 years, while their daughter stays with relatives in China.
To Zimbabwe, where an ugly presidential election dispute is playing out. While the new president is calling for unity, the leader of the opposition insists the vote was rigged and plans to challenge the result. Emerson Mnangagwa was declared the winner of Monday's presidential election in Zimbabwe. What began as a peaceful vote turned deadly 48 hours later when the military fired on protesters and 6 people were killed. By Thursday, the country's Electoral Commission, ZEC, officially announced Mnangagwa's ruling ZANU-PF party will maintain control of the government in the first vote after the fall of longtime leader Robert Mugabe.
Therefore, Mnangagwa Emerson Dambudzo of ZANU-PF party is therefore duly declared elected president of the Republic of Zimbabwe with effect from the 3rd of August 2018.
Mnangagwa received 50.8% of the vote, while main opposition challenger Nelson Chamisa received 44.3%.
We don't want anything, we just want answers.
By Friday morning, 3 truckloads of police donning shields and batons tried to disperse about 100 local and international journalists gathered to hear Chamisa accuse Mnangagwa of rigging the votes.
It's because he has been in cahoots with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to try and manipulate and alter the will of the people, which is not possible. And this is why we are pursuing all our legal and constitutional routes to make sure that we negate this kind of cheating.
Chamisa vows to challenge the result in court with evidence.
Hardcore evidence, in fact, paper evidence, V11 forms, which are polling station-based forms.
75-year-old Mnangagwa, Robert Mugabe's former enforcer and confidant, urged residents to unite.
While the violence of the last few days must be condemned loudly, we cannot allow the violent actions of the few to detract from the democratic expression of the many.
In addition to calling for an investigation into the military's use of deadly violence over election protests, the president reminded his rival he still has a place in local politics.
To Nelson Chamisa, I want to say, you have a crucial role to play in Zimbabwe's present and in its future, and in its unfolding future.
Still ahead in tonight's news, an interview with a co-creator of one of the world's famous robots, and a 12-year-old to study biomedical physics at a top Mexican university.
Do you feel the world start moving when this magic game
Robots taking over the world is a common theme in sci-fi movies, but a co-creator of one of the world's most famous robots remains optimistic that's not going to happen. Winnie Wong recently sat down with him to talk about the future of humanity.
Hello. By now, you've probably heard of Sophia the robot, the world-famous android who has appeared on talk shows and forums around the world. Last year, she even spoke at a United Nations summit on artificial intelligence and sustainable development. Her uncanny ability to seemingly converse with humans makes her a subject of intrigue, fascination, and of course, controversy. Sophia was a joint project between Hong Kong-based companies Hanson Robotics and Singularity Net. While Sophia can do a good job mimicking humans with more than 50 facial expressions, the bigger question is, how does her intellect hold up?
Because of having a human-looking face and a human voice, then that elicits certain expectations in people. So even if she just looks at you and smiles, people think there's some humanity there that in some cases isn't really there. It's in the observer's mind.
Last October, Sophia became Saudi Arabian, making her the first robot to be granted citizenship of any country. For some, it's a scary prospect and a hint that machines are further replacing humans and their jobs. But Gertzel says it depends on how you look at it.
Do you lose the meaning of life because you don't sew your own clothes anymore, but buy them in the store? I mean, I think the meaning of human life has shifted throughout the last 10,000 years as technology has developed, right? And it will continue to shift. It's interesting, if I talk to people under 25 about this, most of them are not worried that they won't have to work for a living. They're relieved, like, wow, that takes a big load off my mind. I can hang out with my friends, play music, play video games, read. If you talk to people my age, then they're really concerned because they derive their meaning and purpose in life from working for a living.
And what about those ominous predictions of robot apocalypse we often see in sci-fi movies?
No. I'm an optimist.
Why are you so confident?
Because I'm an optimist by nature. That's all. We're not making killer robots, right? We're making robots that relate to people in a positive, emotional way. We want robots that are teachers, that are elder care workers, robots that help scientists do science. You're not going to have a guarantee, but humanity has never had a guarantee.
Winnie Wong, TVB News.
It's the birthday of the Chinese god of war Guangdi or Quantai tomorrow. Board members of Po Lun Kuk, a local charity organization, gathered today for a ritual dedicated to the occasion. More details from Kina Chu.
Food offerings. Bows, burning incense to invite and send off the deity, and finally, toasts. This 15-minute ritual held inside the Guangdi Hall of Po Lun Kuk's headquarters is dedicated to the Chinese god of war whose birthday is tomorrow. Under the lunar calendar, that would be the 24th of June. Originally named Guangyu, Guangdi was known for his integrity and loyalty as a famed general of China's Three Kingdoms era. Even to this day, people place his statues in many places to seek peace and protection.
A Chinese tradition, which is listed in the UNESCO list. Guangdi being one of the tradition, and it represents righteousness. It's more symbolic than superstitious.
With Guangdi's birthday being one of Hong Kong's intangible cultural heritages, Ma hopes to keep and pass on the traditions associated with the occasion to future generations.
We take great care in preserving this tradition, and we want the young people to know our Chinese culture and Chinese tradition.
The Guangdi Hall here, where people have been worshipping Guangdi for 140 years, is a Grade II historic building. Kena Chu, TVB News.
And in Mexico, a 12-year-old boy has been admitted to one of the country's top universities. The recipient is Carlos Santamaria Diaz. He's been accepted into the undergraduate degree program in biomedical physics at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. He is the youngest student ever admitted into the school's century-long history. Santamaria Diaz passed the entrance exam and has already done preparatory study at the university's Genetic Sciences Center. The university vows to treat him like any other student with no special privileges or benefits. And that's